Oh my God. You know, you know, the lead story has to be the Halligan shenanigan. Or maybe we should call it the Halligan humiliation. I don't know, but here we have it. Lindsay Halligan. Lindsay Halligan, who was hand picked by Donald Trump and put into a spot designated by Pam Bondi as a U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Columbia, purportedly, legitimately. People didn't think it was legitimate, but she was put into that spot with the specific direction as dictated by Donald Trump on Truth Social to indict his enemies as part of a revenge tour. That's what Lindsay Halligan was tasked with. She was put into this high level position as a U.S. attorney in one of the, I think it's 93 offices across the country. This is a coveted role. This is a role that is usually given only to people who have prosecutorial experience. Often you have to work your way up from being what's called an AUSA, an assistant U.S. attorney. But this Halligan shenanigan is now paying dividends because yesterday a federal judge determined that the attempted appointment of Lindsay Halligan to serve as an interim U.S. attorney was invalid. Invalid. Let me say that even more clearly. Unflippin' constitutional under what's known as the Appointments Clause. Let me back up and give you the bottom line. Lindsay Halligan had a grand jury indict James Comey for apparently lying, making false statements to Congress. And Lindsay Halligan also had a grand jury indict Letitia James for allegedly falsifying mortgage documents. Now, let me remind you, James Comey is the former head of the FBI who was leading the investigation into any kind of coordination, any kind of unlawful activity related to the relationships between the Trump campaign and Russia in the lead up to the 2016 election. This is what became the Mueller investigation. And it wasn't just looking into coordination between the Trump campaign, looking into that. It was also looking into Russia's active measures to interfere in the election. You might remember in early 2017, Donald Trump fired James Comey to get him off his back, something he admitted to Lester Holt on ABC News. You might also remember that Robert Mueller's investigation, 2 volumes, did reveal that Russia, in fact, had agents interfering in the election. And there were many indictments, including the Internet Research Agency and so on. So that happened. You might also remember that in the Mueller report, volume 1, Mueller did not find that there was sufficient evidence to charge conspiracy between the campaign, or Don Jr., for example, and the Russians who met with them in Trump Tower, promising dirt on Hillary Clinton. But you might remember in Volume 2, Mueller provided a blueprint for numerous counts of obstruction of justice in connection not just with firing James Comey, or not just in connection with what, I don't remember if the Comey piece was part of it, but in the Jeff Sessions firing and other pieces of this. There were specific examples where in the Mueller report, it set out each of the elements of obstruction and laid it out for a future prosecutor to bring the case. And of course, Merrick Garland ignored the Mueller report and just moved on. Okay, why am I mentioning this? Because Donald Trump has hated James Comey since then. And let's be honest, many of you may have not been happy with James Comey, who is perceived to, in his last-minute effort right before the 2016 election, to make a statement that there had been a reopened investigation related to Hillary Clinton, her email server. I mean, this is probably bringing back bad memories. Anyway, not a lot of people may love James Comey, who seems to be more seated on his high horse sometimes than fully aware of the implications of his actions. However, I believe my view is he is a man of integrity and got caught up in a very complicated mess. Now, Donald Trump has hated James Comey, and so he wanted, as soon as he got into office this second time, to have him indicted. And the problem is this. There was a man in the office who was appointed as an interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. And here's the deal. Normally speaking, for specific high-level positions, the president can nominate, but then there needs to be the Senate confirmation process. This is in the U.S. Constitution. Now, of course, there is an understanding that, this could take I'm giving the justification. You might not be able to get every open spot filled. So you can put one interim person in there for a period of time. And off the top of my head, I'm not remembering if it was 120 days or what the period is. It's in this decision. So there was someone in that role as an interim. And Pam Bondi, Donald Trump's attorney general, or I should say the attorney general of the United States, was really, under pressure. And apparently the guy in the role that Halligan took said there's not enough evidence here. There's no case. Same thing, I believe, regarding, well, let's just start with the Comey case. He didn't think it made a lot of sense, and we've talked about it here, it doesn't, to bring this case. I don't think there is even credible evidence that he said anything false, let alone intended to be misleading to Congress. Fine. And that is what an internal report said at this office. The guy who was the interim, his team put out what's called a declination report and said, we should not bring this case. Well, the statute of limitations was tick, 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 ticking away. And Donald Trump knew he only had a few days. And he went out on Truth Social and said, Pam, hire Lindsay. You know her. She'll get this done. So Pam Bondi fires the guy who was the interim and hires Lindsay Halligan, who had very little. She was an insurance lawyer and was working on the Trump team involving the documents at Mar-a-Lago. Remember, I showed you a picture. I'd seen her in court. She was sort of retreated back kind of into herself, didn't seem to be taking a lead among the men there. But anyway, Lindsay Halligan is hired. And within like 4 days of her being hired, she gets a grand jury to return an indictment. And she is the only person who signs this. Normally, you have a team, not just the U.S. Attorney in the office. No one wanted their fingerprints on that. Okay, that was the story. And now that case has been thrown out. Now, let's be clear. It might be confusing because there's two strands of challenges to the Comey case. There's one strand where Comey had been directly challenging the indictment, saying it was, malicious prosecution or something like that, that they were just going after him, and that it should be prosecutorial misconduct, right? He was arguing that in the very court where the case is filed in the Eastern District of Virginia. However, they needed to have a different federal judge look at the question of whether this Halligan was wrongly appointed. And yesterday, that judge said, and here we have an excerpt from it, the attempt to install Miss Halligan as interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was invalid. And because Ms. Halligan had no lawful authority to present the indictment, I will grant Mr. Comey's motion and dismiss the indictment without prejudice. The judge in this decision, says this is so critical to due process. Without saying this, a president or the president's attorney general could just appoint anyone off the street to act as a prosecutor or to act as this U.S. attorney and bring indictments. And basically, Lindsay Halligan has no more authority than, I'm looking at my hand, guys, and I'm obsessed that, here it is. I have what looks like whiteout on this hand. I'm sorry. I didn't know what that was and why I would have whiteout on there. This is a mystery. Oh my God. It's not whiteout. Is that toothpaste? No, it's whiteout from this paper. Okay, whatever. Let's stay on track. If I have no more authority than Lindsay Halligan does to walk into a courthouse and go indict people, and that's probably good because, too much power would corrupt. Can you imagine me indicting the person who was talking too loud in the airport, pacing around in front of people on the speakerphone, acting as if he's some big deal maker? I'd fucking indict him. I might even indict the person who is taking too long to order their coffee if I'm really jonesing for coffee. I'm kind of kidding. But the point is, Lindsay Halligan is thrown out of her job, and this case was thrown out. Plus, that same judge, on the same grounds, threw out the case against Tish James. What does this mean? These indictments are gone. And you might say, oh, Jen, they're not gone forever. See that part where you said without prejudice? I see that part. So what does that mean? When an indictment is dismissed without prejudice, that means, in theory, it could be brought again. In the case of, in both cases, that's going to be a challenge because who is going to bring that indictment? They need a new U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia now, or they need some U.S. attorney who can, in the proper jurisdiction, who is willing to bring this case. Well, how are you going to get that person? That seat is now empty. Okay, now, here's the deal. Under the law, there's only one shot at an interim U.S. attorney. If they hire that other guy back, he's not going to bring the case. So you might be thinking, well, Trump is going to just hire someone. Well, Trump would have to go through the nomination process, and that would have to go before the Senate for confirmation. The Senate. Now, yes, you may know that might be easy because there is a majority in the Senate of Republicans, and there is no filibuster associated with these appointments. However, there are, as you have seen, many Republican senators who aren't super happy with Donald Trump. Nevertheless, there will be delays. That's step one. Step two, what about appointing another interim? Well, what this case tells us is the only way under law, under the statute, to appoint an interim in that spot, guys, would be the court appoints it. And that so if you want to have a U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, which is necessary for the office to move forward, you need one because all the prosecutors have to report up to someone who's properly appointed in that office. It will be the court. So here's the good news. Good news. He's not going to be able to handpick someone who will just bring indictments willy-nilly. That's one good thing. Now, the second thing you might say is, what about without prejudice? Doesn't that mean the case can be brought again? What if he gets someone in there? And, well, remember that statute of limitations issue. Now, the statute has already run. However, there might be some wiggle room there where there could be an extension of that. That's a bit complicated. I don't want to get into the arguments there. There's not a statute of limitations issue on its face for Tish James, but nevertheless, getting out of the legal weeds, this Halligan humiliation is a huge victory for the rule of law and for norms that we have had in this country for as long as I can remember, where you are supposed to separate. There is supposed to be kind of a wall between the White House and the Department of Justice. We don't want a president who prosecutes their enemies. That's okay. So this revenge tour is over for now. Oh, folks are noticing. Look, my Quiet Piggy shirt came in. Yes. I made this because I wanted it so badly. Quiet Piggy. I wanted to own this. It's not just directed at Donald, like you, Quiet Piggy. It's also owning this idea. Quiet Piggy, yeah. I ain't no quiet piggy. I'm a loud piggy. I like pigs. Call me a pig. Call me a farm animal. As insulting as that is, I am over that. You cannot silence or stop people who have solidarity, and we all have solidarity. Now, let me just tell you, yes, I think somewhere up in the chat, maybe Deb can find it. I put a link if you want to order it. It's on Zazzle. They would send it out to you. It doesn't really have anything to do with me. I think maybe I get 15 cents. I can't remember exactly how much. The t-shirts are extremely affordable. I think right now it's only like $13, right? I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, I made some merch and now let me add $10 onto the shirt so I can make money. No, this is Quiet Piggy. It's for you. It's for everybody. I love it. I think I'd have some fun choosing the font. Apparently, you can take this design and put it on a tank top or a sweatshirt or a mug. You do you, or don't. I don't care. So yes, thank you for mentioning that. Now, someone asked, is she up for disbarment? Oh, yeah. I think that Lindsay Halligan has got a lot of problems because remember how I said this got dismissed because she was wrongfully appointed, and the judge in this case made that decision, right? However, remember that the other lines of cases, the other challenge that, for example, Comey was bringing, which is moot now, unless a case comes up again, is regarding this sort of corruption in the decision and the manner in which he was prosecuted. And Halligan, it appears, lied to the court and also tried to act as if he was really indicted. This is complicated because she didn't know how the true bill gets presented and all this stuff. So there's a lot going on here. I mean, I think Halligan should be disbarred. And I actually think Pam Bondi should step down. But, we shall see. Let's take this victory where we have it. Now, there is more legal news that's kind of amazing. Amazing. Last night, there was a FOIA request from a court that was approved. So let me, this is Judge Chutkin, and I want to, yikes, I want to share this with you. Kyle Cheney, who is a Politico reporter, let me bring this up on stage, put this up last night, and here we go. This is Judge Chutkin orders an expedited processing of a FOIA, a Freedom of Information request related to files related to the DOJ's handling of the Epstein files. So let's just look at this, the high level, and then I'm going to explain it a little bit to you in a moment. There's a group called Democracy Forward. And toward the end of July, right after, here we go. Toward the end of July, right after Pam Bondi announced, nothing to see here. Remember how like she was like, oh, it's on my desk and I'm going to be top priority, the Epstein list, blah, blah, blah. And then July 7th, she's like, nothing to see here. There's no list. Goodbye. We're closing the cases. Well, people were freaked out. And one of those organizations was called Democracy Forward. And so Democracy Forward filed a request under the Freedom of Information Act with the Department of Justice. And mostly it's focused not on getting access to the actual Epstein files, but instead they want to know about context. They want to know from all the relevant agencies, so the Justice Department and other agencies, and I'm going to quote this, they want records regarding, quote, the recent review of the Epstein matter case files, 2, the Attorney General, so Pam Bondi's public statements about the content of the Epstein file matters, and 3, communications among these high-ranking DOJ officials concerning the Epstein matter following intense media coverage, and the decision not to release files in that matter. Okay, that's what they asked for. And so just so you know how this kind of works, when you are denied the request, which is what happened here, the DOJ said no, go away. What happens next is that a lawsuit is brought. And so in this case, this Democracy Forward brings this lawsuit and ends up saying, we want this. Here's why we want it. We of course get the Department of Justice saying go away, and ask for the case to be dismissed before trial. This is called through a summary judgment motion. So let me share with you. This is what we're talking about right now. So this is this case, Democracy Forward Foundation versus the Department of Justice. And as you can see, this is this Freedom of Information Act case. And what they asked for is expedited review of these requests. So they don't just want to win access to these documents surrounding the decisions Pam Bondi made about the Epstein files and so on. They want it done fast. And what happened is they asked for, in this case, they asked summary judgment. This is when a plaintiff sues and asks for summary judgment, they want to win before the case goes to court, and the Department of Justice asks for dismissal under summary judgment. They want it dismissed before court. Well, Democracy Forward wins. They win the case. Summary judgment, we don't even need to go to trial. They won, mostly. They won in part, and they were denied in part. And so I'm going to go to the very bottom of this case so you can see the conclusion here. Okay. So what they won is they had 2 FOIA requests, January 25th and July 25th and July 28th. And they basically get everything they want except something involving overbroad search terms like whistleblower and flight logs. So what is this about? Okay. So let me read this piece to you. The court is largely satisfied that Democracy Forward's FOIA requests are closely related to the department's handling of the Epstein files. The request for, quote, records reflecting all correspondence between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, end quote, is plainly tied to the concern discussed in the media that the Justice Department reversed its position only after Bondi reportedly informed the president that his name appeared in the files. The request for directives and guidance issued to FBI employees tasked with reviewing the Epstein files in spring 2025 is likewise relevant to why the department reversed its position on disclosure. So the court agrees, but they don't like, the court refused to allow the FOIA request for any mention of whistleblower or flight logs. Okay, so what is the point here? Let's translate that into English. In order to, let me translate to English. Why did the judge agree with Democracy Forward that they were entitled to this information and on an expedited basis? What information are they getting and what won't they get? Well, the standard here is that Democracy Forward, people asking for this information, have to show, they have to demonstrate that this topic, the Department of Justice handling of the Epstein files, is, quote, a matter of widespread and exceptional media interest in which there exists possible questions about the government's integrity that affects public confidence. And this is a standard under federal rules. So this Judge Tanya Chutkan, agreed that Democracy Forward had met that standard. And the other piece, though, is the other piece to this, of course, is what they get and what they don't get. What is important here is, as you can see, pieces of the Epstein files will be released to Democracy Forward unless this case is overturned. So these pieces would be all the correspondence in the files between Epstein and Trump. This is big. This has nothing to do at all, and the judge makes clear, with the legislation just signed into law by Donald Trump, which he is trying to avoid probably implementing. This is the Epstein Files Transparency Act, right? This doesn't depend on Pam Bondi hustling and getting this information to Congress and then us waiting to see what Congress gives us. This is this is an organization who wants to share this information in the public interest. So you might be saying, what is Democracy Forward? Let's look. I think I would like to know, who are these people, right? So 1 second. Let me pull that up. This is Democracy Forward. This is their website. We go to court for people and democracy. And this is what they do. And they have a little video. But here, the single largest source of Trump's legal troubles is what Atlantic Magazine said about Democracy Forward. Let's look at here what their work is. This is what you just heard. The FOIA lawsuit holding the Trump-Vance administration accountable for handling the Epstein files. Okay, so these are the kinds of things that they work on. Let's look. I'm going to go back and share their video. This stuff makes me happy. I'm not saying you should donate to them. I never have. But and you might want to, I might want to. Let's just look at what they do.
The inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump.
Planning for a flurry of executive orders.
Several focus on immigration and the southern border.
Some federal employees are being told to stay home and prepare to be fired.
Establishing the Department of Government Efficiency.
President Donald Trump's executive orders are facing tough scrutiny in courtrooms across the country.
Attorney Sky Perryman, she's also president and CEO of Democracy Forward. That's a progressive legal organization that has sued the Trump administration.
Our organization, Democracy Forward, is working with so many others to be able to read and respond to the executive orders as early as day one.
Democracy Forward has been preparing for months, if not years, to be ready to respond for this moment.
The courts are really the front line right now. This administration is trying to move incredibly fast and in a very harmful direction.
There have been over 125 different lawsuits that have been filed by Democratic attorney generals, civil rights groups, Democracy Forward.
We've had folks working through the night to put together complaints and motions for emergency relief.
If outside people are providing input on how the government serves Americans, we have to know what they're doing.
We have a number of cases that we have filed to hold the administration accountable to the law.
The executive does not get to escape a court order.
To work on something, whether it's in a case at the United States Supreme Court or organizing locally, it is a way to not lose hope.
It was a pretty amazing experience to hear from folks across the country that said, I have funding for my program today because of what you and your team did.
We've seen that success in the court so far on behalf of DF and our plaintiffs.
You have demonstrated that it is possible to stop at least some of this, and that is incredibly important.
At Democracy Forward, we have always been about going where we are needed and about taking on the hardest fights. We hear every single day from people across this country, people that don't consider themselves political, that may have never been inside of a courtroom, that are reaching out, asking what they can do in this time. We hear from people on opposite sides of the aisle. We hear from educators and veterans. We hear from parents and students and young people who are all wanting to make sure that this country, that the best of this country and its people are able to move forward together. So that gives me great hope.
Yeah, so that gives me great hope. It's also an organization that you might not know about. People are loving to give money to the ACLU. They've got plenty of money. I mean, do what you want. This seems like a very good organization. Now, I want to just clarify something just so you know. As mentioned in the case throwing out Halligan's appointment and throwing out the indictments against Comey and Tish James, who, by the way, Trump hated Tish James because, of course, Tish James, as the Attorney General of New York, brought that successful many $100 million case against Trump. This is a civil case involving his false assessments of his property for tax evasion in New York, et cetera. So he's obviously detested her too. Now, the judge who made that decision was Cameron Curry, and she was sitting by designation in South Carolina. So she is a federal judge for the District of South Carolina, and she made this decision. And it's important that even though the case heading in this case was from Eastern District of Virginia, this person was in charge of this, this decision. And I just think that I want to give you who she is. I think she is obviously a hero. Here is Senior Judge Cameron Curry from District of South Carolina. And of course, as we noted, she was put in this role so that there would not be one of the judges from that district on this case. Why? Because the judges who actually sit, the courts that actually sit in the courts for the Eastern District of Virginia are the ones who will decide who can be the interim U.S. attorney. That's on them now under Congress until Donald Trump goes through the appointments process. So they have an obvious conflict of interest. So that's why they had this judge, the senior judge from South Carolina, preside over that decision. I just wanted to point that out to you. Now, okay, we've got two legal issues, right? We've dealt with rule of law prevailing, the revenge tour hitting a detour with the Halligan shenanigans. We just talked about the FOIA request involving the Epstein case. Of course, both of these cases will be appealed. But we also have more legal news involving one of our heroes, one of the heroes, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I would call him a hero because he had courage to essentially survive through this unlawful deportation to El Salvador. And the latest thing with Kilmar Abrego Garcia is, it's kind of incredible. But essentially, I want to share this with you now. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, in his court case, because he's been trying to get himself, they're going to deport him. And he doesn't want to go just anywhere because he's afraid the Justice Department is going to send him to some foreign country that will then send him back to El Salvador, right? He is one of these people who was swept up with, even though he's El Salvadoran, Venezuelans, he came to America to escape El Salvador. He was here lawfully. It's very complicated about what happened to his case, but because there's also a pending criminal case against him, they're going to be able to deport him. So again, the whole thing going on with Abrego Garcia is his lawyers trying to get him to go to Costa Rica. The Trump administration saying Costa Rica doesn't want him. His lawyers saying, what the F? Yes, they do. So again, more of this kind of misconduct from the Trump administration, and they were found out. So let me share this with you. This is from my friend Katie Fang's Twitter feed, and here's what she said. New. Trump DOJ, so this is again Pam Bondi's DOJ, once again busted for yet another lie told to a federal judge, this time in Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case. So the Justice Department told Judge Zinnes that Costa Rica wouldn't take Abrego Garcia, and instead he has to be deported to Liberia, with which he has no ties at all. And it turns out that this was a lie. Right. And this was filed. So we found this out yesterday, but this was filed on the 23rd. Right. Which is so let me read this to you from the case. Here we go. On Friday night, the government's representations to Judge Zinnes that, quote, Costa Rica has represented that it would not simply accept petitioner if asked, quote, and that Costa Rica, quote, refuses to accept him, end quote, were revealed to be flatly false. In a statement to the Washington Post, Costa Rican Minister of Public Security, Mario Zamora Cordera, reiterated that his country would receive Mr. Abrego, quote, under humanitarian conditions that guarantee the full respect for his rights and liberties, end quote. That position that we have expressed in the past remains valid and unchanged to this day. And in addition, the Costa Rican Minister of Public Security added that Costa Rica's offer to receive Mr. Abrego Garcia for humanitarian reasons stands. This is really bad, and it's really good. Good for the Washington Post for reporting this, but it's really bad for Bondi. I mean, obviously, she needed to step down before. So that is our third victory here for rule of law and transparency so far. Now, let's pivot. We've done some law. we're going to get to some money. But let's skip over to power first, because there's some power here, or some snark I can hand. The news is the rats are fleeing the ship. Metaphor. People are not rats. But, and no offense to rats, everybody loves the pizza rat in New York, don't they? Okay, so what's happening? Marjorie Taylor Greene is the first of the House Republicans who are like, why should I even finish out my term? I think people are humiliated that how much Mike Johnson is a puppet of Trump, and he says to them, we're against this, and now we're for this, and they are embarrassed by, now looks like they had lack of integrity for not supporting release of the Epstein files, and suddenly like this, doing it. But let me share with you what we are hearing in this instance about the, as I said, the rats, or I should say, the Republicans in the House, either finding their spines here or finding that even they have a limit on how much they can be humiliated. So let's start here with, this is from Jake Sherman, and this is shared. He's Jake Sherman. Hold on. I don't know which outlet he's with. Jake Sherman is a journalist. He's with, I believe, Punchbowl News, and he covers politics. And let me share this with you. This was shared on Blue Sky by, I think this one is shared by George Conway. And let me read to you. This is the first part. A few other GOP members messaged us over the weekend saying that they too are considering retiring in the middle of the term. Here's one particular exercised senior House Republican, and I'm quoting this Republican who is sharing his or her frustration with the White House, talking to a journalist. Quote, this entire White House team has treated all members like garbage, all. And Mike Johnson has let it happen because he wanted it to happen. This is the sentiment of nearly all appropriators, authorizers, hawks, doves, rank and file. The arrogance of this White House team is off-putting to members who are run roughshod and threatened. They don't even allow little wins like announcing small grants or even responding from agencies. Not even the high profile, the regular rank and file, random members are more upset than ever. Members know they are going into the minority after the midterms. More explosive, even resignations are coming. It's a tinderbox. Morale has never been lower. Mike Johnson will be stripped of his gavel, and they will lose the majority before this term is out. Oh my God, I love this song. Now, there's more. Jake Sherman adds, since this ran this morning, 4 hours ago, so this was yesterday, today is Tuesday, so this was about Monday. Since this ran this morning, I've gotten countless text messages from House Republicans agreeing with this sentiment and saying, why the hell should we stay in Congress if all we're going to do is vote on censures and be a potted plant? Okay, so why they want to jump ship now is because they obviously don't care that much about their constituents. Their biggest fear is that the Democrats are going to win the House, maybe even before the midterm elections. And they're saying they don't want that. But on top of that, they don't get anything to write home about. They aren't getting anything from the White House. They're supposed to just be an arm of the president, and they don't want to be his arm. So let's keep, I don't want to hype this up too much. Let's not get our hopes up, but I like this. Now, my last piece of power before I talk a little bit about money, and then do Crazy Town, because I got a good one for you, is this. It's all well and good for me to have Schadenfreude, delighting in the misery of others regarding this Republican Party defectors, right? But what's going on in our own party is actually more exciting for me. And that is this thing, I mean, I cannot believe it, developing among the progressive senators, and they're calling it the Fight Club. And I've not seen the movie Fight Club, but I know they say what happens at Fight Club has to stay there. Well, something to that effect. Well, in this case, the Fight Club story is pretty cool. Apparently, there are members of the Senate who are done, who are rebelling. Let me share this with you. This is a story in the New York Times, and I love it. Chuck Schumer faces pushback from a Fight Club of Senate Democrats. Subhead: a group of liberal senators is quietly challenging the minority leader over his approach to the midterms and President Trump, in a sign of the party's deep frustration. This piece is by Lisa Lair, and it's saying a group of influential liberal senators is directly challenging Senator Schumer's approach to the midterm elections. They're also saying this is at least a half dozen senators. I realize that means it's only 6 or so, but okay. They're calling themselves the Fight Club, and they're unhappy with how Mr. Schumer and his fellow senator from New York, Kirsten Gillibrand, the head of Senate Democrats' campaign arm, have chosen, recruited, and they argue favored candidates aligned with the establishment. Let's tell you who the Fight Club members are: Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, Tina Smith of Minnesota, Chris Murphy of Connecticut, Bernie Sanders of Vermont, and Liz Warren of Massachusetts. This reflects the widespread doubts among the Democratic base that party leaders in Congress have a strong vision and winning strategy for returning to power. Okay, I was reading from that article. It may seem small, but you know what? Zohran Mamdani is just one person. 6 is better than none. Schumer needs to go. Okay, let's talk money real quick. NVIDIA. So NVIDIA seems to be in a little bit of trouble in that the stock is dropping. It's not entirely clear why that is happening. Our NVIDIA and tech shares are still down. And what's weird about NVIDIA is, stocks go up and down, and I'm not commenting I'm not doing an analysis of it. But here is what, for me, as a white collar crime person, gives me life. Let me just back up and say, before I actually share this with you, the part that is so exciting, which is this. This is like a rule of thumb. If you are having to tell people when you run a company that you are not like Enron, oh my effing God. That would be like me saying, hey, I'm not like Jeffrey Dahmer. And it's like, Jennifer, no one accused you of being a murdering cannibal. Like, why would you even say that, right? It's totally off base. So when a company says, we're not like Enron, the massive fraudulent organization that came crashing down in the early 90s because of false fraudulent accounting, when you say that at the same time that there is downward pressure on your stock price, buddies, people take notice. So let me share that with you. Holy guacamole. Okay, no thanks, parents. NVIDIA says it's not Enron. They said this in private memo refuting accounting questions. This came out yesterday. A series of prominent stock sales and allegations of accounting irregularities have put NVIDIA in the middle of a debate about the value of artificial intelligence and its related stocks. I'm giving you an amuse-bouche. This is just a taste of things to come. Doesn't get better from here. AI, which has been so hyped, is something. But it's just like when the internet stocks. I shouldn't say just like. To me, my view is, pets.com, everyone laughs at its Super Bowl commercial because everyone was having a .com. But no one's laughing at Amazon now, okay? The internet matters. AI has and will have a place, but not the hyped up place now. And that is why we are seeing pressure on these companies. And I would be shocked if there aren't accounting problems. This doesn't come up like this. I'd be shocked if there aren't some issues when they say we're not like Enron. Maybe they have quote unquote aggressive accounting they're trying to say. Stay tuned. We will be following this story. And do you know how I know we'll be following this story? Because I'm teaching white collar crime in the spring. And every year I have a cover slide, like a poster child. And sometimes the cover slide that I pick ends up being someone who isn't a focus, or they're already a focus of attention. Sometimes I think I had Sam Bankman-Fried up on my slides, and that might have been, I would have had to have done that at a time before. It might have been after he was indicted, but before he was convicted. I'm not sure when I had that, but I think it would be super interesting just to put NVIDIA ? Or the next Enron ? On my cover slide. And just see, the class starts in January. Just see whether anything happens. Let's just follow and see what happens. Okay. My last thing. I think we can stop there. I think we can stop with our money stuff there. These are the big stories. Super cool. Now, though, it is time for Crazy Town. And Crazy Town today is hilarious. It is hilarious because I know that we are still all concerned about the premium hikes that people are going to face when the Affordable Care Act subsidies end, right? We know that's a problem. And we also know that ever since his first term, beginning in 2017, Donald Trump has promised that his healthcare plan is just 2 weeks away, right? So what is pretty cool is that yesterday on CNN, we had this moment where the host on CNN was about to have the authority to unveil the details of the Trump administration's healthcare plan. And I know they probably felt like, oh my God, good for us. We got the scoop. You can imagine, right? Well, even as they were, getting excited, they're going to reveal this, right? Let's see what that actually looked like. Okay, here we go.
We're told it could include a temporary extension of the Enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies, which are due to expire at the end of the year. They were at the center of the government shutdown. However, the subsidies could come with some fresh guardrails that could include new income limits and a requirement that everyone pay some form of a premium. Now, we should note that if the subsidies do expire, millions of Americans are expected to see their premiums more than double next year. Zach Cooper is joining us now. He's a professor of health policy at Yale University. Zach, thanks for being here. As I noted, we are very much still waiting for specifics here. I'm sorry, this has actually been, sorry, Zach, we're getting breaking news while I'm talking to you. What? I have learned that the White House has postponed its expected unveiling of this new health care proposal. It was expected to be unveiled today.
What? I can't believe it. Can you believe it? They've lined up an expert to talk about this. They are ready to roll with it on CNN, and they got rolled. Oh my God. Okay, guys. Looking forward to seeing you in the morning, and get your turkey defrosted if you're doing that. Maybe it's too late. Do not listen to me about poultry. I have some poultry stories some Thanksgiving fails to share with you. So tomorrow morning show, it's going to run as live. It's going to be a pre-record, and it's going to be a lot of Thanksgiving warnings. There's no point in scaring you on Thanksgiving Day, where we will have a live show. But the day before, I think it's funny to laugh and hear about what you shouldn't do, like give food poisoning to your family, like my beloved late mother did. And let me tell you, she would be laughing about it right now. And she would have told you, it's not my fault. It was the oven. Okay, Mom, I believe you. I absolutely flippin' believe you. Okay?
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show.